Thank you. Okay, good evening. This is the meeting of the
I
planning
guess he is there.
on Tuesday, April 16. And call the meeting to order. Is there a motion to open the meeting?
Motion?
Second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, our first matter is a continued public hearing. This is on the Panetti application to Main Street, Kisco Park. This is an application for a site development plan approval, application for preliminary subdivision approval and stormwater management and erosion and sedimentation control for the construction of a new single-family residence. So it's a continued public hearing. I guess we saw you back in March.
Yes.
I'm looking. Perfect.
So for the record, Ralph Alfonseggi, the engineer for the project, it's been before you for a while. So I think the biggest change from the last time, besides trying to address all the comments from the town engineer, we flipped the driveway actually to the opposite side of the house. This was to give it better sight distance, both left and right. It does require cutting down some more trees, which I'm discussing with my client about how to go about handling that or mitigating that. I did review the memos. I believe Sabrina's memo is pretty much complete. I don't think she had anything new or additional, and I don't wanna speak for them, but probably a little bit. Bob's memo looks a little bit daunting, but there's a lot of those items that are kinda technical, a couple typos, couple things that kinda carried over. Didn't see anything too major on Bob's memo, but again, he can speak to it. And I know there's like I said, there's some significant tree cutting. Dennis went out to the site and looked at the trees. I think we are cutting 24. We would be required to plant, I believe, 54, if the number's correct in my head. Which again, I have to talk to my client and try to figure out a mitigation for that, because I don't think it's possible to plant 54 trees on this site.
So did you I don't recall, were there problems with the sight lines with the initial location of the driveway?
Yeah, it was extremely tight, and as Bob pointed out in his memo and speaking to him, this site has GIS topo, so it's downloaded from Westchester County GIS, especially on the road in each direction, and if that's off 6 inches, then the sight line doesn't work.
Right.
And it's a lot better from where the driveway is in the proposed plan that you have.
But I thought I saw, well, Bob can speak to his own comments, but I think he raised the issue that the steepness of the driveway in this location may be a problem, may be an issue. And then the other issue, obviously, the one that jumps out, last time we talked about trying to save a couple of trees with the old layout. And this time when we come in, we see a very significant jump in the number of trees that need to be eliminated because you're not working with the grade, instead of just coming across the grade and coming up with a shorter driveway.
Correct.
So I was just wondering, I didn't recall that there were sightline issues last time that were a problem, but I might be, as usual, wrong.
It was very, very tight to look in each direction. And it was a little bit more comfortable where it is now. But I do agree with you that there's more trees to cut down.
A lot more. Yeah.
And I was just talking to my client, and, thinking about some different alternatives actually.
With the new driveway, there looks to be 8 trees coming down there. 5, I think, are in the driveway, and the other 3, are they sightline trees? Is that why they're coming down?
I'm not sure which ones you're speaking of.
On the plan, there's 8 trees there.
Yeah.
So 5 are in the path of the driveway, 3 are to the right of the driveway.
I think it was grading and sightline, yes.
Is it possible that those trees could be limbed up so you could save them as not having to take them down, the 3 that are now in the driveway? And
It's
maybe-
possible, yes.
Maybe if you limb them up, it saves 3 trees and you can still have a sight line.
Yep.
Just a thought.
Yep, we can look at that, absolutely.
Okay.
I'm
And then
sorry.
I also,
It's not.
Do we have a map that we can show?
I'm looking,
Oh, okay.
I can't get it to open.
I thought I heard you said you having a hard time finding a place to put 54 trees,
Yes,
right?
yes.
I was looking on the plans, it looks like there aren't any trees proposed between the 2 new properties. maybe you can put a bunch of trees there. And maybe on the north border between the existing guy or to the left, I'm not sure if that's
And
north.
the new driveway, yeah, I know what you mean, yes.
Maybe along there, just to, as spots to kind of give privacy now to your new house, to the existing house and to their neighbor to the left. That might be a place to thicken up.
We were talking about there, and as you said, as you're in the street looking into the site on the right-hand side where the driveway used to be located, there's some area there that doesn't have trees, and we can fill in that area.
That might be a way to help satisfy it.
Okay. Sabrina, do you wanna go through your memo?
Mr. Chairman, I really don't have any comments. Anywhere that they put this house, it has been zoning compliant. So it is really a matter of having the right information for the town engineer and the environmental coordinator to satisfy their concerns, their comments, and comfort of the board to move forward at this point.
Okay, thank you.
We need some markers as to where the boundary line ends and starts.
You talk about the wetland and buffer area, Dick? Dick, were you asking about the wetland and the wetland buffer demarcations?
Yeah, I think my piles of stuff here are a little messed up. Okay, here we go. Yes.
Ralph,
Yeah,
where do you want me to
Eddie.
go? This is mine,
That's yours.
yeah.
Plans? Yeah, I just gave you the plans, right?
Mhm.
We're gonna have to go
It's
all the
might
way
be
to
a paper.
Yeah.
all the way to the bottom.
Okay. So which one do you want?
The one right below that,
What?
the one right below that.
The one below
Yeah,
this?
two below that now, one more,
One more,
there we go.
okay.
Okay, great. Bob, you had comments regarding this matter.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. The majority of my comments, as Ralph said, I did speak to him earlier before the meeting, there are a lot of technical items regarding the stormwater report, the site distance lines, and just some of the measurements and demarcation of all the items that are required on that water service line. Two things that I think are of significance, as you stated earlier, Mr. Chairman. I would recommend that at least where the driveway may ultimately be, either to the north or to the south, at least leading down to the residence to establish the first floor and garage slab. I would highly recommend you get a land-based surveyor to take good elevations, so we have good elevations along the edge of pavement as well, because there's a flat area on there, which is like a flat sill up on top, and if you're just working off of GIS, there can be a pretty good range in elevation there, so I think if you're gonna start developing the site plan and coming down from the road to meet code with 6420 F8, I highly recommend at least you get it around there. I'm not saying you gotta do a topo for the whole property, but at least the work limits where the house is and where the two driveways may be. That was my GC7. And also too, I noticed they did not submit any more information regarding the subdivision map comments. I had about 7 comments last time, so that you might wanna submit that next time, so we can check the subdivision map and make certain they're up to par. And that's pretty much my main comments tonight, Mr. Chairman.
Okay. Dennis, you had some comments?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Even though you're removing the dirt drive, so these are gonna be activities that are actually in the buffer, so we're gonna need some details as to, sort of the execution of that, and then obviously what is the ultimate plan following the removal in terms of, is this gonna be a restoration, or is it, whatever is going to be, we just need details for that. Just one minor comment, it looks like one of the trees didn't quite get an X. That's obviously in the cluster of all the surrounding X's, so it's just the orange maple as tree number 30. So it's just the dot on the plan. So the table that I ended up developing, from looking at the trees, it looks like there's a total of 33. And then I, just assessed them by condition and came up with those replacement diameters per chapter 121-6. And that does result in the number of Lawrence Taylor, 56, it's not 54. So that's the number of trees that would be required to be replaced. And we obviously would need some details with respect to planting, and to get
I can't
credit.
hear much.
Oh, I'm sorry, to get credit for replantings, just to remind you, just to read, the requirements in chapter 121-6. So for example, if you show 20 arborvitaes and that's it, we can't give you credit for all 20. There needs to be a distribution. And then of course, understandably, with site development, and the board has seen this before, we understand those laws of physics that you can't, put trees where the house is, where the driveway is, where the garage is. So that's why the tree bank fund is acceptable, when it comes to new development. So whatever you can't plant, that would be another mechanism to meet replacement requirements. So until I get a few more details on that, I don't have much else to say.
Right, so we need really a full or proper mitigation plan for you to really look at.
Yes.
All right, comments from board members? Questions at all? Any questions from the public on this application? Is there anyone online?
I don't believe so.
Okay. Seems to me that we have more work to be done though, before we can really move this forward, so I guess what we should do is, what do you think you might be able to do in terms of timing? We can continue the public hearing.
Yep.
What's the lead time that we have, Felicia? Let's, for what, let me read my calendar.
Our next meeting, our next submission deadline is April 29th for the May 21st meeting, or May 13th for the June 4th meeting.
So we can pencil in one of those dates, whatever you feel you're more comfortable with.
Can I give an answer tomorrow?
Not really.
No, okay. I'll take the first date.
Okay.
I have to do it. Yep.
Okay.
I feel like Monty Hall. Which one do you want? So we'll try that?
Yep.
And then if for some reason you're not ready, just let us know and we can adjourn.
Yep.
Okay?
Okay.
Okay, very good, thanks.
We're about to go on, I know that the singing comes first. So we're about to go on, I know the singing helps first. Thank you. Love you.
Who's talking?
To someone from the.
I thought I shared voices.
Yeah,
It's early in the night for that.
too early.
Yes.
Going on item 2.
All right, item number 2, so this is the Jagger Realty, 238 Sawmill River Road, application for a site development plan approval for the installation of Tesla electric vehicle charging stations. We last heard this back in November.
Right, good evening, I'm Henry with Tesla, I was here in November, good to see you all again. I have Dave Rivette from Dewberry, our engineer, we have Gary Bean, who is our traffic engineer. Since our last meeting, we did a few things, we did a traffic study, parking study really, of the property, which we presented. To talk about that, I'll have Gary just give a brief synopsis. On our plans, we did a few changes, minor, but I think everybody's gonna be happy with the changes. There was a layout change where we found a way to reduce the number of stalls that we're removing from the property. I think we were removing 3 stalls, now we're just removing 2. And we added a general parking sign to show people that those parking stalls are available for any car to park. We proposed a sign, it's in our plans, we can talk about, what sign the board would like, if you guys like our sign, or would you like to modify it? That was pretty much it from our end. I would like to open it up for questions now. We could also talk about the parking study.
Well, yeah, why don't you do that, just give us, the conclusion of the parking study, and I think our consultants looked at it as well, so we should have those, that conclusion, I guess.
Good evening. My name is Gary Dean. I'm a principal with the firm of Dolan and Dean Consulting Engineers. We are headquartered in Somerville, New Jersey, but we work all over the Northeast and licensed engineer in New York, Connecticut, among other states. And we've been working with Tesla over the past 5 or 6 years for these types of applications wherein superchargers are proposed for installation, typically within shopping centers. And working with Sabrina and your staff after the November meeting, we scoped a fairly comprehensive parking study of the plaza. Normally, traffic engineers, we take a representative weekday, we look at a representative weekend. I think for thoroughness, staff had asked two things. They first asked us to study an entire week in December, which happens to be peak shopping activity for retail plazas, also with Spaccarelli's restaurant. As it turns out, they had their holiday party on one of the days where we did our study. And then as a follow-up, we were asked to go back in post-holiday season, and we were there end of January, beginning of February. We've submitted correspondence to the board that I prepared. It's dated February 22nd. And I know there's a lot of charts and figures, but we wanted to be very thorough in documenting how the parking demand ebbs and flows within the center. And I'm pleased to say on virtually every day, including weekends, there are anywhere from, and this is at full vacancy, there's anywhere from 25 to say 40 empty spaces all the time. On the day we did our study where Spaccarelli's had their holiday party, and we made an adjustment for full vacancy of the plaza in our calculations, we still had 6 leftover parking spaces that are unused. And so recognizing that that is a once annual event, we just happened to catch it, we felt very confident in sharing the findings with the board to conclusively demonstrate that we'll say providing these parking spaces as dual purpose for both parking and EV charging, it would have no effect whatsoever on the ability of non-EV customers to find parking within the center. I know Henry has a lot of statistics on EV registrations in the state and how every year they're increasing, and certainly either through various government incentives or requirements, it seems to be the trend where more and more people will be driving EVs. But in this instance, I think we felt at full occupancy with every tenant in the center operational. And I should say, when we did our forecast on the one day where Spaccarelli's had their holiday party, we assumed that that parking demand would be proportional to the vacancy. Now, that's sort of untrue because that's predicated on the demand that Spaccarelli generates, not the other tenants. But even with that, hopefully you would concur that our study shows sufficient parking and that the loss of the 2 spaces with a surplus of normally 25 to 40 and then some would have no effect on.
Did your study include also egress and ingress to the site?
We did not look at that, no. And part of the reason for that is the use of the superchargers, particularly for EVs, it tends to be off-peak, whether it's people coming in for dinner and using it, or employees who park all day and will be able to charge. By and large, running into a store to pick up a pizza, if you're in getting, for the women, your nails done, you'd be there long enough to put a charge in the car. But for a quick in and out stop, it doesn't do much for that. So we didn't look at the traffic flow in and out, and part of the reason is 12 stations, even at peak hours, it would generate, a nominal increase in traffic if people were just coming into the center. Usually that occurs on the weekends or this time of night.
I think one of the questions we had was whether or not there would be ingress egress increases because of the proximity to the Taconic, that this would be now a spot on the Tesla program so that we might see an increase that way. But again, I think you mentioned, I think in here that the charging was 20 minutes? These things
On
work
average,
so-
it's 25 minutes.
Yeah, okay.
Correct, so 12 at a half an hour each, let's assume that every single one got used, it's 24 over the course of an hour. Again, traffic engineers usually get, I'll say, concerned about impacts at around 100 trips an hour. So at that number, not enough to raise to the level of, and again, that's assuming at peak rush hour, which is generally not the case, but. So if there are any specific questions, I'd be happy to address those, but we wanted to, and again, when we looked in January and February, there's much less activity than obviously during peak holiday season.
Can I ask a clarification? You said you did your study in December, SPAC already had their party.
Correct.
You took into consideration that there was 2 vacant tenants?
3 actually.
Oh, there's 3 vacant tenants
Correct.
now. If one of those tenants become a restaurant in the future, which has more of a demand of a parking load, did you factor that in to make sure that the use of the EVs and this additional tenant, if a restaurant or not, or if those other 3 tenants fill up and they're active, we still have a significant parking?
Sure, I would have to defer to Sabrina or your engineer in that I don't know whether you have, and I would imagine it rises to a change in use that comes before you for that change in use for that tenant, because they do require more parking. So at that time, that tenant would appear before you for that. We assume that the retail salon type uses that are in the center today would continue.
So previously, one was a dry cleaner, one was a food store.
It was a pizzeria, wasn't it?
It was A&S, right? It was
That was a
an-
long time ago.
Right. And the pizza's still there.
No, it's gone. So was the pizza gone? The pizza
Pizza
place
two
gone?
38's gone?
Yeah, was that gone when you did your study or was it still active?
I can't speak to when they moved in or out. We
Well, what were the vacancies when you did your study?
well, they were vacant, so I don't know who they, it's just the unit numbers were empty. They're on the far, call it southern end of the plaza.
So they're the far southern end of the plaza.
Correct.
I think it's the eastern end, but that's okay,
Yeah,
western
it's-
end, doesn't matter. They're at one end,
We'll say furthest from
furthest from the
the
entry.
driveway.
Yeah, but the pizza place is right on the corner of the
Correct.
entry. And to your knowledge, that was not one of the vacancies.
Correct.
Okay, so,
So they're still there.
no, they're gone.
They were there
But they
during
were there,
this-
but they're
Yeah,
gone.
I'm just trying to say that
In the
there
numbers
was
there.
a food restaurant user there
Yes, in the
that
numbers.
carried a big load. Is that load
In the-
considered in your analysis?
Yes,
numbers.
because
Okay.
they were there when we did our study.
Gotcha,
So
okay.
assuming a restaurant swaps in, it would be the same. If it's a retail tenant, then the numbers would be further
Would
suppressed.
be less,
Correct.
agreed, okay.
Yes.
I have a question on, this is more of education. I'm not suggesting you move this to another location. But when you guys go looking, maybe this is more of a Tesla question, when you go looking for locations, what made you pick that spot? As far as the other spots in Millwood?
Well, I do work for Tesla, but I am the engineer. I'm not the site acquisition person, so what I can say is it's just a number of factors. Number one, amenities. We like shopping plazas, we like convenience stores. We like to have a spot where people can come in, have food, go to the bathroom. We do like to have a fair amount of parking to work with, so this shopping center has something like 80 plus parking spots. So that's another thing. Proximity to a highway is another thing we look at depending on which specific town we're looking at. And then, of course, once we start talking with the landlords, that's a whole negotiation conversation. So I can say we did speak to other landlords in the area.
Like I would just say the Chico's parking lot would be a great place where people would go charging, go grocery shopping for that 25 minutes or 35 minutes.
Is that the?
That's the supermarket just right on the other side.
I-
Yeah,
Again, I am not the site acquisition.
Gotcha.
We did speak with them.
okay, fair enough.
We're not proposing a project there.
Gotcha, okay, thank you. I have more questions if I just go.
For the engineer?
Yeah, you go, you go, no, you go.
Okay, I have some questions about your numbers. First of all, the demand for the EV charging stations is based on current figures, not projected. Is that the case?
The demand as far as what we have in the report is that
Well, you're asking for 12 stations.
Mhm.
And so the demand for 12 stations, is that based on the current demand for EV charging stations or a projected demand over time, like 10 years from now or 5 years from now? How do
I see.
you decide that?
I see your point. We have many stations. We have hundreds of stations. We have that data. We have projections of how much vehicles are gonna be on the road in the future. We take both of those into consideration and we propose an X number of stalls in any given area. 12 is what we need today, and it accounts for some future growth, but it's not over, many years. If it's over many years, what we do is we start adding more stations in the area. We can expand this station as an option. I'm not saying that's in our lease or that's not part of our plans, but these are things that we do. We expand stations. So 12 is what we need today. It accounts for some future growth, but it's definitely not gonna take care of all the future growth for the next 10 years.
So maybe you can tell where I'm going with this. It's just a question or an observation. That when we approve parking for development, it's based on a certain ratio, depending on the land use. And that's a ratio dependent on the amount of square footage of that land use. And it doesn't anticipate, gee, this building is going to, grow by 50%. And therefore, we need to be sure that there's future parking for the future growth of the building. It's based on what the development's actually gonna be, unless the developer comes in and asks for that, says I'm gonna grow the building one day and I need that extra parking, and then we do it accordingly. So I guess what I'm suggesting is I'm not saying there's a problem, but just an observation. The projected, I assume that Tesla is saying, yeah, we want more cars on the road and we therefore are going to provide, they'll be using our charging stations. That extra future demand is currently not in your numbers. So therefore, the utilization of, I think you had in here, what was it? 7, I have the numbers here somewhere. The utilization rate was going to be 7 visits per charging station. It's on page 2 of the report. 7 visits per charging station, and in the future might be 10 or 20, 20 may be an outsized number, but one would hope that it would be more than that. And what would be the downstream impact, the knock-on impact to the retail parking and the restaurant parking at the site? And we can't know that because we don't have that number. Whether we should be concerned about that, I'm not sure, but I think it's just a fact. That unless the EV market tanks and they aren't building them so much anymore and there's no longer the demand that we want to project it for the next 10 years. But it should be a concern that at least, we recognize that is a potential consequence.
I see what you're saying. What we do is we look at our data, look at our network. We do see the stress points. We see when our stations are, fully utilized, let's say, and happens in peak travel times, for example. And we just keep on building the network. And that's what we've been doing for the past, I've been with the company for 5 years. We've been doing these stations for more than 5 years. It's just, we keep up with the demand. We keep growing, we keep adding dots. One of our main goals is to avoid congestion. Like what you're saying, there's too many cars, too little parking spots. Now, for this specific site, we're not proposing 12 stalls plus 8. We're not proposing an expansion, we're proposing 12. We think that's good for now. If we need more in the future, you know, we could come back and ask for more in this particular space. We'll have to deal with it at that point. We could go to the shopping, to the grocery store next door, and try to expand. And it doesn't have to be right next to each other. It could be the next stop on the highway. So, but that's how we
Because I see this as a destination for people up and down the Taconic. I gotta recharge,
Exactly.
and that's what I was wondering.
That was actually one of the factors that you talked about in your original presentation, was that people are driving down the Taconic and they've got it on their, you know, on their onboard computer.
Right.
Where can I recharge? And boy, there's one right there. And I don't, again, we can't know what the percentage of those drivers, or the utilization rate, what percentage of those drivers are gonna be using these charging stations, because it's not in your data anywhere. But there is that attraction that is call it an attractive nuisance from the point of view of the could be end up being because there are more cars in those stations that aren't actually using the retail facility.
Right.
But
I think it's more than an attraction, I think it's a direction. Because
Where's the
people really
closest,
will be directed to that location.
Where's the closest one to here? And while you're looking that up, just wanna make sure you still do, where when I'm in my Tesla, I don't have a Tesla, when I'm in my Tesla driving in the Taconic and I need a charge, and I go on the screen, it says, here's the closest charging station. It factors in if there's availability at that location, correct?
Yes, it does.
And if I'm in my Tesla and I park it there for longer than I get, I think it's 90%, at 90% you start charging people more as an incentive to get them to move their car out of there, if I remember correctly.
Called idle fees, so if you're
Whatever-
there, you're
whatever it may
not
be.
charging, you get charged. You get-
Because to go from whatever 0 to 90, that's quick charge, and then the last like 10 or whatever percent is the longer part, if I
I mean, if I
recall
could
correctly.
just, a little nuance, it's
Where's
more.
the electricity gonna come from?
Electricity's already coming from, looks like you have Con Ed's giving you a will serve letter, right?
We are
Well,
having
when
a
they-
call in
if-
service.
If more people are gonna turn to an EV, well then there's gonna be a need to make sure it's compatible, you know, with the existing electrical programs. You know, there's also a possibility, you know, in my mind that this has to be set up for in case there's a lull in production and purchasing of EVs. Now, I think I read in the documents that initially you could have normal gasoline cars there if there's not a demand for the EV being recharged. I think that's right, is that?
Yes.
yes,
We are allowing any car to park in these spaces.
I'm sorry, you said what?
Any car can park in those spaces.
You will let it, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Just back to my question.
Sure.
So where's the closest, if I'm on Taconic, north or south?
There's Tarrytown going south would be the closest on the Taconic,
Okay.
the very end. There's Ossining, not on the Taconic, but
Right.
that's closest geographically. And then the next one up north would be Yorktown Heights, so
Okay.
that's like,
Yeah,
Those
so
are the
we know
three
we know what
closest.
those are. And
oh, can I just,
Yeah,
the
go ahead.
little nuance, I just wanted to get it right. The fast charging, yeah, it's relative what you call fast, but when you're at 0% state of charge, it goes really fast. When you're about 50%, when you're like halfway full, it starts tapering down. Yeah, when you reach 90%, pretty much that's it. Like most people will stop there. Unless you're going on like a big trip and you wanna go top off at 100%.
Alright.
When you stop charging, when your car is done charging and you're still sitting there, and there are more cars using the station, when it's halfway full, the station halfway full, that's when you start incurring idle fees, and they're not they're not tiny. I've had them myself.
Yeah.
So you're incentivized to get out of there.
Right.
But if you're in a
And-
gas car, you're not incentivized to get out because you don't know.
That is correct.
So you're just kind of hoping people in a non-EV will park in a regular spot and they won't go to that spot.
Which is my concern about that sign. Because looking in my unscientific drive around our community, there are a lot of Teslas, obviously, but there's also a lot of Volvos and other car makers that are switching over from like the ones that are, the charging stations we have in front, those are the non-Tesla. A lot of the groups, as they put in here, are switching over. So like the Volvos in next year or 2 years, they're not gonna be able to charge here without an adapter versus now my wife's Volvo, I can charge a Tesla with an adapter. So having a sign that quasi encourages people or doesn't discourage them from parking in these spots, if there are available spots, can be concerning because you're taking away an opportunity for someone to park there for an EV, and it's also messing up their software, where if I'm driving down to Taconic and I need a charge, it says there's a station open, but I get there and there's a Chevy parked in that spot. So something I think we need to factor in on that. I think Dick asked about the power. Con Ed already confirmed they can serve you for this?
Yes, we have a service determination, we're good. Our plan has been vetted by Con Ed, they just have to change a fuse and the pole. And then we're gonna be taking a radial primary feed from the existing transformer into a new transformer for us.
I think somewhere in here it mentioned that there was a letter from Con Ed, but I didn't see it.
Yeah.
Is that forthcoming?
We did submit it.
I didn't see it. I don't
Yeah, it
think
wasn't in the packet.
Yeah, I didn't see
Wasn't
it.
in the packet.
Maybe not the resubmission, but we did originally submit the Con Ed letter. We can send it.
Yeah, just for the file. I mean, you know,
Bob, can I ask a question
Sure.
of Sabrina?
sure.
Sabrina, you there?
I am here.
Hi Sabrina,
Hi.
this application is before us because and only because there's a proposal of a reduction of parking of 2 spaces, is that right?
Correct.
Not because this is a change of use or anything like that, correct?
Correct.
Okay, I just wanna make sure that we keep that in mind, I don't wanna like,
But I also think what has not been mentioned is that while they're reducing the overall parking in the site by 2 spaces, the 14 spaces that they're, or the 12 spaces that they're using for their charging stalls will also be available for regular parking for gas cars, not just electric. There will be signage for that.
right,
So there's no net loss of parking spaces other than the 2.
right, that's what we were just
Yeah,
discussing,
and I
and
think
there are
there's
pros and cons to that for sure, but ultimately, the question being before us is the reduction of 2 parking spaces acceptable or not?
Well, in the
Correct.
context,
And
yeah,
in accordance with the town's traffic and parking consultant, Starkit from Creighton Manning, he indicated that we can suffer the loss of the 2 spaces.
so I just wanna be sure that I understand this because we're talking about a reduction of 2 spaces numerically, but we're talking about the increased demand on the existing spaces. Because we are talking about a new use which has its own demand. And the demand we're talking about, which is beyond the users of the shopping center, are the very people who are coming down to Taconic looking on their computer to come here. So the net loss is if you look at a plan, it's 2 spaces. But if you look at the use, it's more than that. And I think that I think the task here, and you guys have done the study, which is, I think, helpful to get there, and I'm not suggesting we're not gonna get there, because I'd like to get there. But it's, what is that increased demand? And what's the demand profile through the day? And how does that impact the users and the tenants in the shopping center and the people who wanna use the shopping center? And it's gonna be more than, it has to be more than 2 spaces, I mean, it just has to be. Otherwise, you wouldn't have people coming down, you wouldn't be attracting people coming down the Taconic to use it. So it's an increased use. It's almost like putting another use on the site, and we have to determine how much parking we need in order to accommodate that use.
And that's why we went through the labors that we did.
Exactly.
And other than the Christmas party, at all times, there were at least, and I wanna get the right number. $25 empty spaces. So let's assume all 12 of the superchargers are being used, we still have 13 empty spaces for the plaza.
Right, I think for purposes of this kind of discussion, we could just assume that we'll lose 12 spaces, and if we lose 12 spaces, what you're suggesting, and what I think our consultant has confirmed, is that we're still fine.
Well, I don't understand that though, because maybe I misunderstand your bar graphs. Because the bar graph, like on, what's the page number here, there's no page number, but let's just look at Tuesday evening.
The 5th, I assume.
Yes.
Okay.
So when you say adjusted parking demand, what do you mean by adjusted? Where's the
Sure,
adjustment?
we accounted for the vacancy, so because when we did our counts, let's assume I only counted, and on that Tuesday that we shaded, we had 67, I'm putting that in quotes, occupied spaces. We didn't, we only had 45 occupied spaces, but when I proportionally adjust that for the vacancies,
It's a 1.4 ratio.
we've calculated that up to be 67. So
Okay, that clarifies that.
that may never happen, but I'd be remiss if I didn't consider those trends would
Right.
be exhibited for the future tenants.
Okay, got it, so now I understand that, but now what I don't see here, you said you did it for the full week, but I don't see Saturday
Yes, so-
evening.
no, we didn't do Saturday evening because those retailers closed and then the restaurants opened.
When do the retailers close on Saturday? Do they close any earlier than they do on Friday or Tuesday or?
We stopped at 3 only because typically with retailers that call it midday, that's the peak time for retail use and whether your consultant or we show you those trends, retail spikes in terms of its demand noon, 1 o'clock, 2 o'clock in the afternoon, and then it walks down. And again, the nail salons close at 5, et cetera,
If
so
that's,
then the restaurant gets busier at 6 and 7 o'clock as those retailers have declined in
So
activity.
so what you're saying that the data past the time when you are saying the retail use drops off, it's in every chart, isn't it?
Correct, and if you'll notice on Saturday, the peak time of demand is right as I thought, 2 o'clock in the afternoon.
No, the peak time of demand isn't here because I'm guessing the peak time of demand is when the restaurant opens up. The restaurant has more parking than all the retail put together.
Well, it can't because we have 83 spaces.
No, then, I'm sorry, all the retail put together, not including the restaurant.
I understand, my apologies.
Yeah, so that number is not here, and what you've said is that, well, and I understand the staff holiday situation, and I guess the restaurant was at capacity for that purpose. But what is the use of the restaurant on Saturday night
Sure.
for regular patrons?
We didn't look at Saturday night, we did look at Friday night at 7 o'clock, which I would expect is peak restaurant demand. And we still had, and again, assuming full occupancy of the center and further assuming what drives that extrapolation is the actual restaurant parking demand, we still had 25 empty spaces. So logically, I would think it's going to be the same, if not, we'd have more vacant spaces on Saturday than we would on a Friday night,
I'm sorry, I
just with
just
the retail.
I just don't buy that. I mean, you know, the stores in Millwood Plaza on Saturday are open as late as they are during the week. They're still open. And let me finish. And often, and actually Millwood Plaza is an interesting case because that shopping center parking lot is packed in the afternoon, pretty much all Friday towards the afternoon. Saturday, you actually now have people circling. It's because the business is doing so well. DeChico's is very popular and they're doing really well. So I guess the suggestion that the retail on Saturday up to like Saturday 6 o'clock in this particular shopping center is de minimis, and it's not going to impact the numbers when it actually is in the Friday numbers and the Thursday numbers and the Tuesday numbers. And so what I don't understand, you said, I don't understand, why isn't Saturday in here?
Sure. Just in my defense, we spent a lot of time working with staff as to when to conduct this study. And we concurred with their guidance. And so by looking at a Friday night, I believe I can logically conclude that the findings on a Friday night are going to be virtually identical to those on Saturday.
I so disagree.
But then we also have, if someone's a restaurant patron and they have an electric vehicle, which we know that trend will increase in the future, they're going to avail themselves of that charger. So we're not taking away parking, we're just giving them a bonus to park in that parking lot.
We're not talking about that yet, we're talking about the lack of data for what I believe is the most busy time of the week. Speckrelli's is a family restaurant. People take their families out on Saturday night. My guess is that that demand is higher than Friday. And whether it is or not, we're both guessing. And we're not supposed to be in the guessing business here, we're supposed to actually know this. And so if you're saying that the staff, I guess Sabrina said you don't have to do Saturday, then I guess it's on us to understand why not, and I think that it behooves us to know that answer.
If I may, it was not Sabrina making that decision, it was the town's traffic consultant who reviewed the scope that the applicant provided.
And Sabrina, I was gonna just say what you just said. Thank you.
And your traffic engineer appears that he didn't start doing this last week. It's been around for a little bit of time. I didn't catch his resume, but how long have you been doing this, sir?
40 years.
Okay. So in your professional opinion, do you feel like you can take the information you have here, the guidance that it seems came from our own traffic engineer, and make the conclusion that there's not going to be a materially negative impact on availability of parking on a Saturday night at this location?
I think from what I've heard from Henry, the commitment you.
Who's Henry? I'm sorry. Oh, I'm sorry. Okay, thank you, sorry.
The commitment you have is typically Tesla says EV charging only, just like you have outside. I don't know whether you consider the loss of the 2 spaces you have out front as a loss of 2 spaces, or it's just an amenity for EV charging. So we have that exact same scenario. The fact that Tesla has elected not to impose that restriction means anybody can park there. So if the restaurant's as busy as you believe they are on a Saturday, this application has no material effect on that operation. The loss of 2 spaces, given that we had 25 empty on a Friday night, I think my conclusions are this center will not suffer one bit from having these chargers installed, and in fact, it may enhance customer activity for travelers who stop in and say, hey, I can charge, now I'm gonna visit these businesses.
Okay, I'm sorry. I just want to reiterate, it's not the loss of 2 spaces, because there's an increased demand. And you may not understand that, or you may not agree with that, but it's a fact, and this is what we need to understand. So that as a premise is not a premise that I'm willing to accept. And I've been doing this for 40 years, doing master planning and reading traffic reports and working with traffic engineers. And I see a flaw in the data. And we have reviewed traffic studies on many projects here, much more complicated than this one, and understand them quite well. And just a basic data point, which seems to be omitted, which could actually very well be the highest demand time of the week, is a hole in the data that I just think we're responsible to see. It may not make a difference, but I think we have to have it in order to understand it.
That's fair, I understand.
So the range of, so it is a loss of 2 spaces, but I completely agree that there's the potential for an increase in demand, which would make it more challenging to understand how many spaces might ultimately be lost. But ultimately the range is between 2 and 12, right? Because in the worst case scenario,
right,
they're completely full all the time and people are incurring the idle fees and whatever, but it's still the loss of 12 spaces total. And I hear what you're saying, Tom, about the Saturday night. It sounds like the applicant did the right thing by consulting our town staff, and the staff told them to speak to our engineering consultant who gave them guidance. And so it's up to us either to demand that missing piece of data or make our best judgment about whether up to 12 spaces impacted is problematic.
It almost seems like though Tesla's demand, the high point would be Friday and Sunday nights. If people are going up and down to Taconic, leaving the city going north and coming north back, those are the big nights that, they might be doing a destination, get off the Taconic and charge. And Saturday might be a quieter night for people using the Taconic.
The one in
Maybe.
Tarrytown,
Maybe.
I'd say the biggest demand that I've seen there, it's right by the hotel, is in the morning, people that are charging on the way down, like we're talking 6 to 8 o'clock in the morning, charging before they head into the city where they can charge. There sometimes there's a line, but that's Tarrytown where I don't think they have 12 there. But by the time you get to 10 o'clock in the morning, it's empty.
Well, one of the things we can do here, I agree, I think the no matter how we skin it, the difference is between 2 and 12, I just can't see it being more than 12. And whether that's reasonable or not, I personally think it is, but at the same token, we have to go to a public hearing on this. And can you get us some data between now and the public hearing on Saturday? Pick a Saturday and
Sounds like it's an essential component for your consideration, notwithstanding the depth of the findings we presented, and I wanna be mindful of that, so we will provide you with that data. I mean, I don't see any other way around it, but I feel confident, but I wanna give you that same level of confidence.
If you look at the certificate of occupancy for the restaurants, how many people can be legally in there, and I mean, if you factor that in, 2 people per car conservatively. I mean, that's another way to look at it before going out there and getting a random day of studying on a Saturday. Especially going into the summer.
Well, I'm guessing that the occupancy will eventually get back to what is in the building code for parking ratios. I mean, those things that are zoning planning, apparently that's how those things are sort of figured out. How many people at maximum can be in the building, which is occupancy, and then the parking ratios that we have in our code are drawn from that. So if that is the strategy, you could just go to the code and the code would tell you how many are there on Saturday night. Now, that would suggest that the restaurant's full every Saturday night. It's at maximum occupancy, and I'm not willing to say that because I don't know that. But that's why I think, you can use that number if you choose, which is a safety factor for us. But you may not want to do that. You may rather get a real number. It's up
But
to
the
you.
loss, whatever we're gonna say it is, we're still, I think the memo said we still meet our code requirement. Factoring in the bill for the plan, so. You wanna go out there and count? No, I don't care.
well, and the other issue is during the summer, Spaccarelli's actually expands to have that dining outside, so I don't know how that factors. But again, if it's something that you can do inexpensively, easily, one Saturday night and just do it, and we'll have the data in here, so we have 100% assurance. We don't wanna, I don't wanna hold you up on it, I wanna move
Yeah,
forward
me
on
either.
this application, so it's whether or not that can be done, or again, as Jeff and Tom also suggested, take a look at the code and just build it off the code, build off the parking requirements based on the occupancy.
If you get to the number you like, then that's good. And then
The codes are challenging in that, from my experience, they're either based on square footage or seats. And then the question arises, well, it's a busy day and people are standing in line and they're outside enjoying the weather, and that's Pandora's box. I'd rather give you empirical data, which is what we did, rather than adhere to a code, and quite frankly, many ordinances and codes were based on a ratio, say for example, of 5 per thousand for retail. I haven't seen that even in regional malls in 10 years. I mean, between COVID and internet.
If I may add something to this conversation, I think just for general knowledge, say the reduction in the parking spaces will require a variance. Because it will no longer meet the minimum required parking in our code. Our code parking standards are antiquated. The way that those standards were created are vastly different from new standards that come out today based on real data. The ITE manual changed in the sense that they are using real data instead of estimates based on known information and assumptions. So the applicant's traffic engineer is speaking correctly. He is being conservative by using the numbers that are in our code. It was very important to me in speaking with our traffic consultant to make sure that you were not under parking, if you will, according to today's standards, and he confirmed that you are not under parking. So I think that that's important for you folks to have in your background.
Okay,
So if I can just one last thing. I'm looking at the absolute worst case scenario, which is staff holiday. And it's the Thursday, December 7th, 7 p.m. And you have a number of vacant spaces, 6.
Correct.
So this is what I think. I think that in this eventuality, you probably are going to have all of those spaces, or most of those spaces, with 77 cars parked there. Most of those spaces are probably gonna be used by customers who are at Spaccarelli's. I mean, 5 or 6 of them, I don't know. But let me finish. I actually think you're home free, because what it suggests here is that you are providing 12 spaces, and the total number of spaces available, you have 6 vacant ones. And I'm suggesting that is probably more than gonna be able to more than accommodate the people who are driving off the Taconic and looking to get, to charge up at 7 o'clock on Friday night or Saturday night. I think that we're so close to, now we're just guesswork. We don't have the data to sort of do that kind of a fine analysis of this thing, and we don't need to do it. I'm at a comfort level here. The only point I'm making about Saturday night is that we have to have that data in order for I think we have to have that data in order for the study to be complete, and us to stand up here and say we know what's going on.
And again, to reiterate, when we counted, we don't know who went to Spaccarelli's and who was going to the other retailers. So what we did on that one holiday event was to say that, just for ease in math, because there were vacancies, the center is 70% occupied. So we factored in 30% to bring it to full occupancy. The challenge was that parking demand was because of Spaccarelli's. So if I could somehow isolate that, the actual increase, even though I said it was 30%, might only be 10 for those other retailers. So that's why there's a certain factor of safety. But because we didn't have the ability, we're flying a drone, we're counting ins and outs and people are taking a lap. Unless we had 12 people on the site to watch everybody where they went to and how they parked, there's no more refined way I can do that.
But your number is 1.42 for the 3,000 square feet, your ratio of parking, which is like 8 per thousand or something. You're using essentially the Spaccarelli's, the restaurant ratio.
That's my point, which
Right,
those
so I
vacant retailers wouldn't exhibit.
So what I'm suggesting you do, I'm not sure that you need to do that. Why not go to the code which says 5 per thousand? And that reduces the number of spaces you need to have in here for the background retail and gives you more vacant spaces in your analysis.
The only challenge with that methodology is it doesn't reflect the temporal variation in parking demand. You're assuming it's whatever the number is, 5 per thousand for that vacant retail, but at 7 o'clock on a Saturday night, it's probably more like 1 per thousand, or excuse me, whatever the number is. It's not 5 per,
But
1 per
But
thousand.
you have the same variation with 1.4 you apply to all the retail. So I don't understand what you're
Because it's aggregated. We looked at the entire center and its square footage. I can't
just trying to help you.
proportionally adjust it. No, I understand, but it
It might
sounds
be an
like,
easier way to get by
the situation, but again, I still think we need a Saturday number. But I
I
think you're gonna get
we're
there.
left with that,
I think
so.
you're already there, actually.
I think over the next, as long as we're outside, and I believe we are, spring breaks and things that tend to influence traffic and seasonal demands, if we get this snapshot in the next 2 weeks, we'll submit one more supplement to you but I think at that point,
Great.
I'll leave it to you as far as scheduling, but I think
Good.
we're,
Okay. What we can do is let's try to schedule it now.
I have one more
Oh,
question,
go ahead, please.
doesn't deal with parking. Can you go to C4?
Sabrina's.
So can you go to? Would, I appreciate that you're letting non-EVs park in the spots. To avoid site clutter, would you consider taking that sign and not having its own bollard, or maybe putting that parking sign on the Tesla device itself? So you don't have to have 12 bollards, 12 freestanding signs, it saves you some money, and it's just less site clutter. I know it's a branding issue.
Yes, I cannot agree to that,
Okay.
sorry.
Bollards there for protection of the,
And they had protection, that's true.
The bollards are for protection of what, the sign?
It's
no,
not by
that someone
code,
doesn't drive their EV, hit that thing and blow up.
it's not necessarily by code, however, because we're allowing non-EVs to park there, it makes a lot of sense to have
Oh,
bollards.
so if the sign wasn't there, the bollard would still be there?
I don't know, when I was putting in my charger, I went through the whole process and got Bob to actually agree for me not to have bollards in, but it's you have to have 48 inches between the bollards, it's a whole impact zone. I have a pickup truck, so my impact zone's higher, then you gotta factor in a big vehicle, if it hits that thing.
So if the sign wasn't there, we'd still have the bollard? That's my
I believe
question.
so, is.
So it's not, we do a lot of stations that don't have bollards, so it's not a requirement. Because we're putting a sign, we can put it on top of the bollard, because there's EVs allowed to park here. It makes a lot of sense to have a bollard for protection. It's not required because the dispenser is not energized if it's not in use. So if somebody hits it, there's no hazard. But in this situation, I think it makes a lot of sense to have a bollard.
So here's a real regret, is that,
Yeah, I'm just trying to get less stuff on site,
I understand.
that's all.
We could, something we've done is just have less signs, have a sign that has an arrow and a sign that has an arrow and just say, general parking in these two directions, so there's less signs. We could have one sign. Those are like kind of the two things that come to mind.
Gotcha.
I apologize, Bob and Sabrina, I know you had some thoughts on this and we didn't call on you guys to hear your input. So Sabrina, do you have some thoughts on this application that we haven't beaten into the dust?
No, I'm pretty much, my comments have been covered by all of your comments, so there's really no new information. I think that if the applicant is willing to do additional counts on Saturday, that we need to factor that into the timing, and if the board would like to see a draft resolution, we could have that prepared as well.
Okay, great, good idea. Bob, did you have some thoughts?
I just had one comment, I had it on my previous memo, for construction purposes, I would highly recommend that you utilize the sketch I have given you, which shows underground infiltrators on the north side, where the Con Ed facilities are gonna go, there's a propane tank, there's some piping, there's some catch basin, underground facilities, I just wanna make certain during construction, those things are not impacted in any way, shape, or form. So I would like to see those items that I gave the sketch on based on the as-built survey superimposed on these plans as well, just so there's no problems during construction. And that's all I have for now, Mr. Chairman.
Yes, we will add that to the next revision of
Great.
plans.
Great. Dennis, did you have anything? Okay, great. So, what do we look at for a schedule? And then we'll leave it to you guys to see what you realistically think you can do.
Our next meeting, our next submission deadline is April 29th for the May 21st meeting.
It's probably a little bit too soon, right?
No, I can do that.
Oh, you can?
Yeah, sure.
For the study and everything? Oh, great.
Are you sure? Yes, in 2 weeks.
Yes, and you're the boss, I assume you want this thing sooner than later, so I'll make sure it
It
happens.
is, it's true, but can I ask, would this be a public meeting?
Yes, it'll be a public hearing, and what we'll do is, if the board is so inclined with a resolution tonight, is instruct staff to have a resolution ready so that, assuming we close the public hearing, we can go to a decision and you're done.
That'd be fantastic.
Those are the words that most people like to hear.
Yes. Is it the 26th?
No, May 21st is the meeting, April 29th is the submission deadline.
Oh, the Monday.
So, listen, pressure's on me, I can do it, I'll deliver.
Alright,
Today's the 16th, so
yeah, let's get the drum ready.
we'll get it ready.
Alright,
Super, fantastic.
Thank you for the accommodation.
Thank you.
Yep, you bet.
oh wait.
Oh, yes, ma'am. It's not public, but we'll take your comment, sure. You're here. Anyone who can listen to us this long earns the ability, the license to speak.
Hi, Nicole Richey, Overlook Road, Austining. I was gonna hold comments until the public hearing until I heard that you're gonna have the resolution ready, so decision would be made very promptly. So I'm delighted they're gonna be possibly a supercharger in Millwood. There are superchargers all around, well, the closest one is at Staples, that's an EVgo supercharger. In Yorktown, there's an EVgo supercharger behind Taza Cafe in Katona, there's one in Austining. There are 12 banks, Tesla chargers that are never being used. And then there are 4 EVgo chargers in Thornwood. So we need one here. And the thing is that people in Newcastle who own EVs are not, well, I don't know what the statistics are, but everybody with an EV has a level 2 charger at home. So what we need are superchargers, not just for the people getting off the Taconic, but also for the local residents. So one thing, and I think you alluded to this, I think it's, and I think the board may have asked for this, but allowing other cars to park in those spots can be problematic. Because if you have an EV vehicle and you're down to 5 or 10%, you can't go to the next gas station, right? So if you pull into Speccarelli's and all the spots are taken either by non-EV users or by EV users who've gone to Speccarelli's for an hour or an hour and a half and leave their car there and it's charged in 25 minutes, that alone is problematic. But it's just something to consider that people with EV vehicles wanna have that space available to them. And the other thing, and I think Mr. Curley, you brought this up in November, was that I think I have this correct, your question was whether the Tesla charging stations would be accessible to non-Tesla cars. So you can buy an adapter and it's not recommended at all. However, Tesla does make what they call a magic dock supercharging stations where there are 2 cables and one is for Tesla and one already has the connector for CCS outlet on a car. So I wanted to make sure that the Tesla stations are gonna be magic docks so that those superchargers will be available, especially given that Tesla just, I think today announced they're getting rid of 10% of their employees, their sales are down, but the sales of all the other EVs are up. So I think that's a really important consideration. In fact, both of those things, you know, especially given that the direction we're going in is more and more EVs and we want people to have more and more EVs. So if it's gonna be difficult for people to charge, it's not gonna be an incentive.
You know, along those lines, and Larry brought this up before, but thank you for those comments. Would the board be comfortable with segmenting, say 6, I'm just throwing a number out, 6 of the 12 that will be reserved only for EVs, so that there's some assurance that there will always be EVs available, again, based on whatever we see from the study, from the numbers. Is that something that makes sense in view of some of the comments that we're hearing here?
Or, can we do it or? Because I like what you're thinking, but you know, to Nicole's point, the location with the 12 spots they have are still kind of close to the retail. If they made all the Tesla spots in the back, I don't think you would have non-electric people parking in them because would have to walk too far. Right? I'm just being legit honest. So that might be the incentive to get non-electric people from using those spots is by putting the Tesla spots
all the way in the back.
page south, all the way in the back, and then making them just electric. Or then do the 6 and 6 or something. I know it gets a little out of the way for you guys, but it would, people are lazy, they wanna park as close as they can to the restaurant, as close as they can to the retail, and this would be a way to disincentivize them to take up your spots.
And full disclosure, I have an EV vehicle. And when I go to the one, the EV Go charger in Yorktown, Staples Plaza, which by the way has two cables, one's for a CCS outlet and the other one there is a courtesy to Tesla, has a cable for Tesla. But because it's right in front of the gym that's there, there's always somebody parked there. A non-EV user, a non-EV user.
Not charging.
Not charging. And a non-EV car.
I'll just respond to one thing. These proposed stalls are gonna be universal, so any EV could charge in them.
It will have a CCS outlet on the cable
It will have a
on the
magic
charger.
dock.
What?
It will have a magic dock.
Magic dock, okay, that's good. All of them?
Yes. And yeah.
Thank you, that's a good comment though, thank you.
Obviously, as far as moving them to say, I did wanna say, if you go there today, there's gonna be cars parked in the very far end. Like the rest of the shopping center is empty and then people park way on the back.
Could be the employees.
Could be the
Could be employees, I don't know, I'm just wanted to point that out. But more importantly, if we take up the stalls that are sort of on the back area, it's just gonna create issues. For example, we're gonna have to remove some trees. Like that's the sort of the main thing that comes to mind. I know there is a propane tank in that area. Sorry, there's a propane tank there. And then on this side, I think there's
There's the trash.
this side.
Yeah, the trash
in the
enclosure.
corner, yeah, on the back.
This worries me a lot, but and then this side here, there's a wall here. This is difficult without making the stall bigger. So if I were, I've looked at this, trust me, we've considered this. We would propose something like this, but I see a lot of challenges. There's this water, this storm drain. Those are kind of my thoughts to that.
But is there a comfort level, board members to look at some sort of number where, I don't know what the magic number is, 50%, 2/3, 100%, I don't know what it might be.
I mean, just from my experience, a lot of times people park in those spots that shouldn't be parked there.
Yeah.
And from, if we're concerned about people coming off the Taconic and to charge there, they may show up and there may be 12 internal combustion engine cars parked there. So something to at least protect some of those. I was just pulling up here, it looks like, I forgot, Millwood has two chargers at the baseball stadium, baseball park over
Yeah, but
there.
those are level 2 chargers, people have
Right,
that at
but
home.
I'm just looking here, I mean, they're over the last 5 cars that have parked there, 2 have been Tesla, one's been a Volvo, one's been a Chevy, or 3 have been Tesla. And that's 2 on the 9th, 1 on the 10th, 1 on the 11th, and 1 on the 14th. So there appears to be some demand in the area, but not that much at this point.
Right?
Local,
Very
Yeah.
local, yeah.
Do you have experience with, I guess we're still talking about this.
Yes.
Do you have experience with a sign like this that says general parking? And does it work? Does it detract people? Do people care? Does not having a sign change how people park? I mean, that sign to me says, by the way, no one asked me, that sign is meaningless. General parking doesn't say anything, right? It doesn't say is encouraged, is permitted, is allowed. What is general parking? It's but again, nobody asked me. But have you had any experience with signage trying to encourage or discourage a certain type of parking and any success with that?
We have used general parking before at a request of on board in Long Island. I had to put that sign for the same reason, just to not
We don't wanna
not
be like
deduct.
Right?
They might have taken issue with the red, it might have been white. I don't think we're trying to encourage or discourage, so I don't know.
Right, well, this sign will do both.
I think it's just this to me just makes it clear that anybody can park there. If I were just thinking, oh, is this allowed or not, this sign to me tells me it's general parking. I can park there regardless. But it's I really leave it to the board to, to recommend the sign if you guys are comfortable or not. It's up to the board. We're okay with either.
Yeah, I'd be comfortable with whatever the industry standard would be for a sign like this. I mean, this is not the only time such a thing's being done. So I'm fine with if this is it myself. But if there's something, better, then I think that, we ought to see it. With regard to the number of spaces that might be reserved, you have a demand for 12 spaces. And that would, if we just sort of try and come up with a number of how many of those 12 would be people coming off the Taconic to use those spaces, that demand, would 50% be a crazy number? I mean, I know. I'm having the same problem because I don't know how to get at this thing, but if we're looking for, a number here, it seems to me 50% is probably okay, safe, to be sure that you have enough spaces for people coming off the Taconic to be able to use those, assuming people honor the sign. They may not honor the sign, and I don't know what happens if they don't get towed or anything, do they? I mean, maybe,
No, we don't.
it's sort of the honor system essentially.
Yes. We're okay with 50%. If it's better than having signs. To us, it's better than having all the spaces.
Well, the reason I say 50% is in your analysis, I think it's for the worst case, which is staff party, there are 6 available spaces. For the worst case, 6 available spaces. So if those were reserved for people coming off the Taconic, then that would be satisfied, and the total demand for people who are, coming to the shopping center would be satisfied as well.
Seems safe,
I'm okay with 50%. I think you're getting local residents that will use it.
Absolutely.
It's not just a Taconic, but we're okay with 50%. That seems to me, as a EV user, that it's nice to have some spaces that don't have that sign so that people will avoid them.
And I promise, I'm guessing that if the last spaces are those 6 and you don't have an EV car, you're gonna park there anyway, because you're not gonna leave.
Yes.
So it's really.
Because we're not enforcing it. We do these stations without signs all the time. Somebody can park in there, there's not gonna be a problem.
Okay.
Alright?
Well, think about that, take a recommendation when you come back with us and when we talk.
And maybe it's not general parking, maybe it's EV parking only on those 6 signs.
Yeah.
Maybe that's a better way to do it, less ambiguous.
So
Do 6 that say EV only and just leave it at that, and then the other 6 forget about. Yeah, just food for thought.
But for for a submission, we have to put something. I would rather the
Well,
board.
we're laying it out there for the board to
The board wants to tell me what signs we should put. We'll put that sign. So that we don't have to
come back.
No, we will come back, but so we don't have to have a discussion
Another
next time and then resubmit after that.
Right, please.
I would think that if you had EV parking only anywhere, people might think all the spots are EV only.
Yeah, I would like to have that ability of these people to infer that it really is not supposed to be there when you park your internal combustion
Yeah, honestly, we wanna discourage people with gas cars taking up those
I mean, it's
spots.
just, it's, you know, I hate to say it, but it's courtesy.
It's courtesy, it's the honor system and you know how that always works.
Do you guys not paint the pavement?
Sorry?
Put paint the pavement,
We try not to, because it's more maintenance on that paint.
because it's very clear that it's for those spaces only.
If I can be super honest, the fact that there's a charging dispenser right at the end of that stall to me is like
Should be
Kind of like a
obvious.
leading indicator, yeah.
No, but it's
that's what I say when in our case.
I'm saying EV only parking.
Well, you know,
Anyway,
I think we were concerned about this general admission or general parking sign when we were really unsure about the 12. It seems to me that we're at a point where we feel, we think we're going to be fairly comfortable. So I'm wondering why we just don't abandon this requirement of a general parking sign altogether and just have EV parking. Maybe no signs at all, because again, to your point, it's a charger.
I would support no signs.
Alright, less clutter, right? I mean, I think we're at that comfort level, we should be, I hope.
100%.
Okay.
Excellent. We'll do. And we'll get you the Saturday data.
Yep. Alright, great, thank you so
Thank
much.
you so much. Thank you. Thank you for your time.
Have a
Does
good
drafts, does staff start to draft?
Oh, yes, let's do that. Is there a motion then to direct staff to draw a resolution for the next, well, first of all, we have a resolution to schedule a public hearing.
so moved.
Second,
Second.
and then there's a directive for the staff to set up a resolution for that public hearing meeting.
Motion?
Second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye,
Aye.
aye.
Okay, good stuff.
Second?
Yeah.
Yep. Okay, we move now to, we do not, the Man and Yao application is being adjourned to June 4th. It will not be heard this evening. The next item is the WCE Real Estate Holdings, 160 Joan Corwin Way. This is an application for a site development plan application, wetlands application for development of a new playground at the World Gym.
When did you last hear this? When
This-
this is brand new.
Good evening, Brandon.
Hello?
Yep, we're here.
Hi, my name is Philip Holland. I'm an architect in Chapua and I am representing WCE Real Estate, also known as the World Cup Schools. And they are looking to build a playground in the front section. We had a preliminary meeting with the town. And we listened to some of the comments. And we had the second round of comments on subsurface issues that some of them we can address. But I'm happy to answer questions about the presentation.
Okay, very good. Sabrina, you had some comments?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, for the board's information, this application is considered a type 2 action under SEQA, so there's no further environmental review required. This applicant has a special use permit issued by your board initially in 1988 and has gone through various amendments over the years, the most recent being July of 2015. In July of 2015, there was an open play area that was allowed on the site in the front of the building that is the subject of this application, that area. So it is consistent with this existing special use permit approval, and that's very important to be known. When it comes to zoning compliance, the play area that is being proposed has a rubberized material and pavers. The rubberized material and pavers will require a front yard variance to be issued by the zoning board of appeals per your recommendation. So then on Wednesday, come to you. There is no coverage requirements in the IB zoning district, but for information purposes, The applicant will be removing approximately 469 square feet of existing impervious surface, but they will be developing approximately 966 square feet of additional impervious surface. I leave the remaining comments up to Dennis and Bob. That is all that I have to say.
Okay, thank you, Sabrina. Bob, you have some comments?
Yes, good evening, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. A few comments, number one, based on the review of the ABL ramp, it appears there may be some railings required. If the height differential exceeds 6 inches, they do need railings on both sides, that's number one. The site plan should show the existing crosswalk being restriped to match the bottom of the stairs where the ABL ramp comes out to the driveway. And also to the applicant is proposing to install plantings in the town right away. If that's the case, I recommend that they obtain a license agreement between the applicant and the town board. And also, that would have to come with a street opening permit as well. Item 4 to county commissioner. Also too, I would highly recommend showing all the existing utilities. There's not all of them shown on the plans, particularly the drainage structures, the 8-inch sanitary sewer, the electric manhole, and the 2 hydrants, one on the north, one on the south of the property. Number 6, review the landscape plan that appears some of the trees, 2 of them on the south side, located directly above an 8-inch sanitary sewer. Obviously, that would recommend be removed. Also, no trees, no vegetation to be within 10 feet of the sewer. You get root intrusion to the sewer, that's a town dedicated sewer line, so that's critical. Also too, on the landscaping plan, I highly recommend that they show the existing 8-inch sanitary sewer, which was not shown. So we know where to keep the separation distances for the plantings. And 8 is basically the standard planning board legend that should be put on all the site development plans. And that's all I have at this time, Mr. Chairman.
On number 5 and 7, would you be willing to help with the applicant and help them with the demarcation where these things are located?
Yes, I mean, they're on the as-built that he had indicated.
Yeah.
And obviously before construction, they would hopefully pull in the 453 and good locations on these prior to construction.
Okay, great.
So I would like to make some comments to the addressing site plan. So first one regarding the ramp. So in light of these comments, we would like to avoid potentially putting in the railings, so we rework the step, reduce the step to the 6-inch step, and regrade the path coming up, obviously to avoid it being a 6-inch rise, but we just feel from the site perspective, it's quite a small area and quite a small step, so I think it's aesthetically, I think it'd be better not to have it if we can maintain compliance with the ADA code, but potentially not put that railing in. So I would revise that. It's a small adjustment. We can, there's quite a substantial amount of path leading up from the existing area, and I think we can deal with that.
Good.
So that would be my first comment. We will restripe as to align the bottom landing as stated. We are proposing new plantings within the right of way, so we have spoken to the town. It was just highlighted to us, and we received a licensing agreement with the town that any planting would maintain. We're also working with the town for a street opening permit, given that it's so close to that right of way. The planting, I will speak a little bit more because Matt Hoff, the landscape architect, is on this call. But in regards to Ms. Scioli's big comment, I believe Ms. Scioli is referring to an original landscape plan that's on record, original site plan that is on record with the town which we do have a copy of, and we would show in the final construction set or the board applies to the final set of approval, the 8-inch sanitary sewer, the culvert. Is this the plan that Mrs. Cioli is referring to? The existing September 14th, 1988?
Yes, it's basically a combination of the original site plan done by Campbell many years ago, and also the updated as-built that you had obtained from your surveyor, so combination of the two.
So we have a copy of that, and we will update the site, our proposed site plan, with some of this technical information regarding the sewer. I believe the biggest impact would be on the shade trees that we're proposing. So we would have to remove those. I was looking that it is in fact, the sewer is shown at 10 feet approximately off the property line going right in the middle, so I guess I'd like to clarify that no plantings should be within 10 feet of the sewer, including low-level shrubs or things like this.
I would recommend discussing that with the Commissioner of Public Works. He's the one that makes the final call. But I know for a fact when we do sewer designs, we always keep minimum 10 feet away from the trees. So the shrubs might be okay, but I would reach out to Mr. Carey, the Commissioner of Public Works, to get his blessing on that.
Well, I guess we would, the shrubs below the retaining wall on the property boundary there was sort of in response to some of the comments made by town. But with sanitary sewer, they appear to be causing a little bit of a problem. So I mean, we would be happy, well, not include them. It would, since it's encroaching on the sanitary sewer, that would have to be at the discretion of Ms. Dentellelli. Discussion maybe with the landscape architect as well. We could avoid that.
I would recommend if you, the trees are pretty much out, I know that for a fact, within 10 feet. The shrubbery, give me a sketch, a revised plan if you like, Mr. Chairman, I can send this down to Bart Carey before the next meeting, get his blessing on this, and we'll know how to proceed at the next meeting. I can do that in the meantime, between the meetings if you like, Mr. Chairman.
Sure, I think that's a good idea, if the applicant supports that.
Very good, will do.
Okay. Good. Okay, Dennis, you had comments?
Sure, trying to follow up to Bob, you're playing inconvenient truth tonight, I'm usually out of that role. So when I look at the planting plan, obviously I'm looking at what's existing, what's proposed, and I was positive to it. Nice variability, diversity, and consideration for a number of adjacent areas, surfaces, and whatnot. So the only thing that kind of, when I looked at the plan, and then I afterwards read Mr. Holdup's letter, I was like, this place is gonna get hot in July and August, so my only concern was irrigation, and I didn't commit to any preferred alternative, but I agree that this is probably one of the few places in Chappaqua that would experience the quote-unquote urban heat island effect, so I think you need some type of long-term irrigation plan, and it may be not feasible to do a permanent sprinkler system like something subsurface, but even to connect the hose to a faucet, or an exterior, because I'm concerned, obviously after planting that first summer could be problematic. So that was my only concern. And then to the additional comments, I don't know if you guys were fans of the Cubs, but if you wanted a Wrigley Field wall and make it like ivy, if that was something to consider. I know that seriously, it's starting to fill in now at the Conifer building. I know that's not a wire grade, but I give them credit, cause I thought that was a nice, for having a limitation, it was a nice, sort of attempt to at least, put something green in, so you may not have to be that severe, but I just mentioned it. And that's it for my comments, thank you.
Okay, good, thank you, Dennis. Any comments from board members?
My only comment was make it as green as possible, and I support Dennis's point about putting in irrigation. I don't think it's a heavy lift to get irrigation out there, some sprinklers.
As long as it's not the sanitary sewer line.
As long as it's not the sanitary, I mean, it's,
2 for 1.
it's right on the tracks and it's a dusty area with the trucks going back and forth, and the more green, I think the better for the outdoor playground.
Yeah, absolutely. Good.
I would have to have a look at the sprinkler system. You know that the facility does have, I believe it is 3 caretakers, so I can discuss this with the manager, and they would be taking care of this new facility. The pool in front of the building, so they'd also be interested in maintaining that. So the first thing that comes to mind is having caretakers will be cleaning and thoroughly maintaining the facilities. They direct traffic. Everyone's seeing that they would be capable of, I think, watering this. There was a way we could do that because irrigation with potential backflow. Probably an aquifer preventer, and I'm not sure the facility does not have a basement, so it might be primarily seeking to have maintained with the caretakers.
Matthew Pop, landscape architect, if you've heard the plan. Most of the plants are fairly tolerant plants. We can certainly change 1 or 2 of them out to make more drought resistant. But I would agree the first season is the season that we're gonna have to make sure that they're watered. Once they're in, I think that the second year they would be fine, probably without irrigation, especially if there's a drought, if it's a severe drought, if there's a caretaker who could just come out and water those. It's unfortunate we can't put the trees in the front because there's no overhead utility lines. Usually that's a limiting factor for shade trees, but maybe we could stick them somewhere else.
Yep. Be great if we could do it. Anyone else?
Just wanna say that I'm very pro playground, and if they meet the codes, you have my vote.
Yep. Good. All right, we need to go to a public hearing on this. So we don't have much in the way of I think these changes could be done pretty quickly, working with staff.
Again, the next submission deadline is April 29th for the May 21st meeting.
So if you feel that you can get material out for April 29th, we're happy to see you in May.
Sorry, the next submission was April
29th, it's a Monday.
So that would be a public hearing,
We would schedule a public hearing in May, but you need to have your material in by April 29th for the May meeting.
May, okay. Yeah, I believe we can meet that. So we do still have to go through the zoning board process. So we'll have submission and we'll update the plan as for the comments.
Terrific. So if you have that in by April 29th, we'll schedule you for May
21st.
May 21st. And is there is there a motion to schedule a public hearing for May 21st?
Motion.
Second?
Second.
Yeah,
Is the board in favor of allowing the applicant to submit for the zoning board of appeals? Cause that is a minimum of a 2-month process for them there.
Sure.
Yes.
And I think they can anticipate that we'll send a letter of support to the ZBA.
Yep.
Alright, so you can make application to the zoning board of appeals for your front yard variance.
So we did the motion for the public hearing, right?
Yes.
So we did now the motion for the resolution.
Motion.
Second? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, so we're set there. And I guess we can, do we need a motion, John, for the letter of support to the ZBA?
Yeah, you're gonna refer to the ZBA, right?
Well, it's going to the ZBA anyway, so I guess we will support it. Is there a motion to that?
Motion?
Second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay. So I think we're set. So we'll see you on May
21st.
21st.
Thank you.
And we just need to notice that public hearing, so if you feel that there's a problem making that meeting, please let us know and we can accommodate a different notice.
I think that we should attend the meeting. Can we expect approval at that meeting or is that a call?
Say that again?
When can we expect approval from the planning board?
On the 21st, if everything goes as planned.
Yeah, because we're drafting a resolution.
And regarding the zoning board, I believe the next zoning board deadline is on the 26th of April. Will this resolution allow us to make the next zoning board meeting in May?
The board is giving you a letter of support, so you can apply for the ZBA tomorrow if you would like.
We'll do that because this is the process and we'll ideally this be done at the school during
Yep.
So I really appreciate everyone's approval of this.
Terrific.
Thank you, Mr. Steve.
The ZBA is even nicer. Okay, we move now to our next item. This is the BIA American Kitchen, 480 Bedford Road. This is an application for a site development plan application and permit for a sidewalk cafe. This is up at Chappaqua Crossing.
Hi, everyone.
Hi.
Okay, I'm here. I've been here all the time.
Sorry to hear it. For your sake.
No, I'm sorry for you guys.
We appreciate the sympathy.
You don't know that. It looks like I tried to get my architect on the contact. I couldn't get in contact with him. I a little bit took my kids on spring vacation. I wish I was in person there tonight. And he also plans for the, we call it the sidewalk cafe for the restaurant.
Yep.
The architect was very nicer, but everything is, I hope you don't need nothing else as of drawing.
Yep, I think we have the materials that, including all the architectural drawings, some of the renderings. So I think it's actually a complete submission for us. So as we understand it, I think it's, well, Sabrina, maybe you can help us and describe it.
I can orient you a little bit. This is, so the application is before your board because the original Office Park retail overlay district did not include what this gentleman is asking for by way of a covered patio. The area on the site that we are looking at is in building D, and that is the building closest to the cupola building, the commercial building, along the main driveway. It is the commercial space next to the cupola building, and it is the last couple of units in that building D. It is the same space right now that is occupied by Sweet Greens, Harbor Point Dental, and Compass. So if you've been up to the site, you know that it is the westernmost unit in that block of tenant areas. The applicant is looking to create a patio area surrounding the entrance to the building from the sidewalk. It's really, this is an elevated area. From the sidewalk, it's more a patio or a porch entrance, if you will. It is currently uncovered. The applicant would like to put a cover over it. The area surrounding this entryway currently has a fence because it is elevated. So it's a matter of accommodating. I think he was able to put in 20 seats based on the submitted plans and ADA compliance that is currently under review by the building inspector. If this was anywhere else except for Chapel Crossing, it would be considered a sidewalk cafe permit. Because it is at Chapel Crossing and it was not initially contemplated, it is before your board to approve this sidewalk cafe. It is a type 2 action in accordance with the State Environmental Quality Review Act. In my memo, I identified as a small picture of the actual site. So the building is starred where this is taking place. And I provided a picture of a canopy of a similar building in commercial block E. So that is kind of the model that the applicant is going after. Yep. There you go. The actual picture of the front of the building is on my second page. You'll see the brick that is carried throughout the site. There's interior seating of 285 seats. That seating will be reduced to 220 seats due to egress and table spacing. The additional 20 seats outside will bring the total restaurant seating to 240 seats. And that's all I have to say.
Okay, great, thank you.
If I may say, the canopy was mostly for the entrance of the restaurant, so when you go inside the restaurant, you know, if it's rainy or snowy day, and people close the umbrella, so instead of doing just the entrance, then I decided to close the patio all the way to the end, like the building guy said, it's good for ice preventing there in the front of the restaurant too.
Yep. What's the height of that area, the ceiling that you'll put in?
The ceiling of the canopy?
Yes.
I think my architect made it there, I think it's 12 feet from the patio floor, the bottom of the patio.
Do you anticipate
Of the roof.
Do you anticipate using those portable heaters in that area and
No.
Okay.
The glass one?
Yeah, in the canopy and any of
No.
those? Okay.
No.
So it'll be just
I'm
whatever.
sorry, I hate them in my other restaurants, they look awful, they fail, they break.
It also cause fires. Yeah. Good, okay,
I got a few questions.
go ahead, yeah.
So there's two drawings, an A1 and an A2, are those options?
Yes, there are actually two drawings, because I was in front of town engineers. And they didn't want me to make the same patio as the building E, which is 4 doors up from where the restaurant will become.
Right,
So give them an option to be, because I have a brick building and I have a colonial more looking building there.
That's my next question, that you have a warehouse type building you're moving into, and it looks, you know, it's a brick building, to me, it wants to have more of a metal feeling canopy than a wood structured canopy, but the drawings are calling out AZAC, which is more of a wood residential type of material. Has any thought been given to make this canopy look more warehouse-ish, so it works better with the vernacular of the existing brick building?
Can I do a metal roof?
I think you could do anything you wanted to. I'm asking you.
The building not next to it, the gym has a stone in the front and has the same exact painted white canopy.
That's did you say the gym?
Yeah,
The gym, yes, the fitness, whatever is the name.
Okay, but that
Lifetime Fitness.
I understand. So I'm looking at your building, which to me is a warehouse, right? That's the look that it's presenting to me. And I was concerned that the canopy that's on the first page of Sabrina's memo, and I don't mean Sabrina's saying that's the design they're gonna do, but that's what I inferred from the memo, was that you guys were gonna take the wooden canopy from 2 stores down and just replicate it in front of the warehouse building. And that's what I wanna make sure is not occurring.
No, that is just for visual purposes to show consistency. He's actually proposing, and correct me if I'm wrong, he's proposing a metal
Or
roof.
the columns, I'm worried about the
Metal
columns.
roof and the metal
Right?
railing will stay
What's it
existing
look
one.
like aluminum lampposts, right? So the columns, I think if I'm looking at the drawings correctly, the columns are wrapped in AZAC and maybe they wanna be more of like a lamppost type of shape. Because that kind of goes more with the vernacular of a warehouse. And the lampposts that happen to be on the street, I'm not saying that exact section or that exact profile, but something that has more of a, if you're in Soho and you're in the Soho district and you see the kind of metalwork that's there on the cast iron buildings, that feels like it would work better here than something that's an AZAC wrapped column. Just food for thought. And does this go to the ARB, Sabrina?
Yes, it does. It does. Sidewalk Cafe, when he's through with your board, he will apply for a building permit and it will be sent to the ARB. And your resolution can also direct them to go to the ARB.
Okay.
So I don't disagree with your comments. They may end up in a referral memo to the ARB, our comments tonight for them to consider, but eventually it's gonna be pretty much their call, I think.
The ARBs.
Yeah, I believe so.
I feel comfortable with them chiming in. Okay.
And you don't need to do a referral memo, you can incorporate it in your resolution and the ARB will get a copy of that resolution.
That works.
I have 2 questions. One, I just wanna understand, is this going into vacant space that's next to the Sweet Green in the building, or it's replacing the?
Vacant.
It's the vacant space now, okay, but it's the same building that's occupied by Sweet Green and those, and the Compass or?
Yeah.
On the same road.
It's a 2 down on the
Yeah,
left
okay,
side.
I just wanna understand that, but it's not replacing those uses. Okay, and then the restaurant, is the restaurant called BIA American Kitchen, or is that just the applicant's name?
No, the restaurant is called Via.
BIA,
Yes.
great. And you have other such restaurants?
I have other restaurants in Connecticut and I have Somers, New York also, it's called Prime Pub. But this one I changed it to Via, Via in Albanian means daughter.
Love it. I just wanna go on record.
Dinner, let me hear because the Tesla meeting lasted too long.
You're probably about thinking of putting a charging station on the patio, you'll be all set.
I heard everything, not that you guys didn't do it, it's not easy.
Motion to
Well, let's see, this has to go to public?
Yes, it does.
Yep. So, any comments, any other comments, questions? Bob, did you have any comments?
I have no comments.
Dennis, you're all set, right? Nothing here? Okay. So is there a motion then to move this to a public hearing? Again, I don't think we have much of any material that we have to see, so we could probably schedule the same evening, the May 21st.
May 21st.
As a courtesy to this gentleman, if we put him first on the agenda,
Probably could.
I don't know, we might miss out on all some really good things. Anyway, is there such a motion?
Motion?
Second?
Second.
All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
And is there a directive for staff to draw up the resolution in anticipation of the public hearing?
Motion?
Second?
Second.
All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Okay, we're all set. We'll see you on May 21st. Hopefully we'll go from there.
Thank you very much.
Okay, very good, thank you. Thank you for your patience.
Good night.
No meeting on the 7th?
No, you have to make it.
Oh, they just don't have time, got it.
So anyway, next item is just the minutes. The minutes of March 19th.
I got a couple of things.
You do?
Yeah, just a few.
Okay.
On also present, you say that Sabrina's here, but later in the minutes you say Sabrina's not here.
Oh, did I, okay.
So that's just.
join late.
I did join late.
Okay. And then on the second page, I wanna do a little wordsmithing if we can.
Sure.
Okay, on line 12, can the word top, can you make it north end? And the 30%, can you make that steep? And then on line 13, strike steeper in parentheses. And then down on line 23, can we change the word changing to studying? And on line 24, after layouts, do and size. And my last one, on line 24, strike similar to lot 3 and change it to larger to accommodate a better drive layout. I'm sorry, larger layout to accommodate a better driveway.
Larger
Layout to accommodate a better driveway. And that's all I got.
Okay.
I had one. It was in the conversation that starts on 57, goes down to 63.
Wait, what page?
Page 2. The gentleman was talking about how he had all these borings that I brought up, that he didn't have a test pit in that potential fill area.
That's right. That's right.
Wait, what line again is this?
It's in the conversation that's 57 through 63, where Ralph was bringing up that he had multiple test pits, and I brought up that he doesn't have one in that fill area. So
How do you want me to change that?
after line 60 after soil, Mr. Ziegler pointed out that there was no borings in the backfill area.
Yep.
In the backfill area, okay.
Okay, anyone else? If not, is there a motion then to adopt the minutes?
Motion?
Second?
As amended?
As amended, yes, thank you, Mr. Sabrina. Second?
Second.
And all those in favor? Aye. And we had some absence, okay, good. Is there a motion then to close the meeting?
Motion.
Second, very enthusiastic.
I was excited about that one.
Who
Second.
seconded?
You're welcome, Bob.
I think Tom seconded.
Yeah.
Yeah, I did.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye, very good.
Good night all.
Good night all.
Good night, everyone.
Good night.